All right, everyone, welcome to the 2023 Wave Release 2 preview that covers the Power Platform and Business Central. Today I have myself, Savannah, and Gino presenting. We'll do more introductions later on, but let's get rolling. In today's webinar, we have a set agenda. So starting off, we are going to introduce the session, which I just did. And we'll also do a brief introduction on who Gino and I are. Then we will follow up with a release wave general timeline to give you an idea of when these features will be available, whether they are in public preview or generally available. After that, we will start diving into what you're all here for, which is reviewing the features that are coming for the Power Platform and Business Central. I do want to note, and Gino, feel free to add to this, that these features are what we found most interesting, most engaging, and most exciting when it comes to the Wave Release 2. I think it's safe to say that Gino and I could probably have a full 1-hour webinar on each of these topics if we wanted to cover all of the features or all of the components.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when we get to my slides, you'll see that Business Central has had quite a bit of features added to it, and yeah, it would just be hard to cover everything in a 1-hour session. So what I try to do is cherry pick some of the most interesting ones that I think everyone will like to hear, and then also, just some features that you can take advantage of right away. So we're talking user experience, minor productivity enhancements, those type of things.
Mm-hmm. All right, and then lastly, we will be talking a little bit about Better Together, across the board improvements. And what I mean by that is improvements we see across the board, not only within the Power Platform, but in Business Central. Some of those hot topics include things like Copilot, for example. All things that are upcoming in the era of AI and how they might impact Business Central or the Power Platform to make them work better independently, but also together. All right, and moving on to introductions. So my name is Savannah, Savannah Dill, and hence the Not a Pickle. So I run a blog called Not a Pickle blog. It is a blog dedicated to educating on mostly Power BI and Business Central. I talk freely about, things that are coming up, new features, and then just quick tips that I have, kind of struggled with in my past experiences as someone who builds reports. So, my goal is to educate others on how they can, improve their skills. I also work for the TM Group. We are a Microsoft partner who implements Business Central primarily.
I'm Gino Pack. I am the manager of business systems at a company named School Health Corporation. But I've been in the NAV and Business Central space for the last 14 years. So I started off working at an eyewear distribution company that was on Navision back when it was its own native database. Worked on upgrades to NAV 2009 Classic client, re-implementations to the Rolltailor client in NAV 2016, and upgrades to NAV 2018 and then Business Central. So I've been through every iteration so far, or mostly every iteration of the NAV and Business Central product. So like many of you may hear the word NAV slip out of my mouth every once in a while. For those of you who have been in this space for a long time. For the last 4 years, I worked at a respected Microsoft partner and recently just transitioned over to School Health Corporation, and I am working with them on implementing their Dynamics ERP system.
All right, now that you know a little bit about Gino and I and our backgrounds, we're going to move on to the bread and butter of this webinar, which, encompasses the release wave. We wanted to touch briefly on the release wave general timeline. In case you are not aware, Microsoft pushes 2 major updates a year, and this one happens to be the fall update, if you will. It runs from October 2023 to March 2024. The 2023 release wave 2 will have 5 major investment areas or themes, starting with generative AI, moving on to data, user experience and collaboration, application, and security and governance. Now, Gino and I have kind of, collaborated a lot, not only in the past, but these are kind of the 5 areas that we have kind of seen across the board, not only with the Power Platform, but also Business Central.
Yeah, and one thing that I've noticed just over the last, especially, I'd say 5 to 7 years, Microsoft kind of was trying to figure out what it was doing with its cloud platform. I mean, they had all these different pieces. They bought up a bunch of ERP systems. They started building out Microsoft 365. Then it was called, Office 365, and they were kind of all their own thing. But over the last number of releases, Microsoft has made it significantly clear on how they're going to build out their platform. You have your Azure as your technical foundation, with Microsoft 365 as your sort of your tenant, your main tenant environment, and then all these additional tools that all just work well together. So Power Platform, their ERP systems, their CRM systems. So Microsoft has been doing a really good job over the last number of years of sort of melding these products together without causing undue stress to their user base. So every release, they're releasing new features and new updates to make them more and more intertwined, that they can be used together seamlessly. And you'll see that a little bit throughout this presentation. Another thing that I do want to note is that a lot of the updates you'll get on October 1st when, the Business Central release comes out. But there's also a number of updates that usually trickle out over the release wave. That's kind of why they call it a wave. They're just a series of updates that are going to start flowing into the system from, October through March before 2024 release wave 1 starts. So you may see a lot of these updates come out, when your system is upgraded in October, or you may see some come out in those cumulative updates in Business Central. So, 23.1.2.3, you'll see some, some more features being added that are part of this release wave.
I'd say that's true for the Power Platform as well. And on my slides, you will see, what features will be available beginning in October of this year, but some are also not going to be available until March of 2024. So, at the tail end of this release wave 2. And by that time, these plans may change. These are just plans. It is a preview of what is to come. So nothing is kind of set in stone unless it becomes generally available. All right, moving on to the Power Platform Release Wave 2 plan. Quick note here with this plan. Like I said previously, I could talk about this stuff for an hour by myself. So I kind of cherry picked 3 components of the Power Platform. The first being Power Apps, followed by Power BI, and then Power Pages. I chose these because I think they had the most updates, I would say, and also Gino is going to be talking a little bit about Power Automate, at least in relation to Business Central, so that will kind of all be mixed in. But these will be the 3 components due to time's sake that we will begin talking about. All right, starting with Power Apps. So Power Apps had a lot of updates, and if you know me, I'm a Power BI gal, so Power Apps is very exciting for me, but it's not my complete bread and butter. I've built plenty of apps in the past, but it's not to say that these updates didn't absolutely excite me. So with the structure of my slides, you will see that we have some descriptions, but on the left-hand side, you will see when each of these will be either available or in public preview. In relation to Power Apps, a lot of these will actually be generally available or in public preview starting in October of 2023. And as I go through this list, I will kind of note when each will be available. So with Power Apps, there was three main updates that really excited me, or three main components that were being upgraded. Starting with the App Designer UI and UX enhancements, also called Modern Apps, if you are going to be exploring this further on Microsoft Learn. There were a few updates related to UI and UX. So starting off, screen layout templates will have pre-configured layouts for multiple form factors, and this will enable makers to quickly create apps for any device, which I will show a screenshot of this soon, but it's very cool. It basically gives makers the ability to quickly flip-flop between a tablet or web view and a mobile view, showing how your application will look. Also related to UX and UI enhancements, while creating an app, makers will have the ability to preview how the app will reformat for various screen sizes. Both of these, I think, are huge when it comes to accessibility and usability. It will also drive performance and how quickly an app maker can create a engaging solution, and it provides a little bit more flexibility on how the app is created. Now, both of these will be in public preview starting in March 2024, so we have a little bit of time. But in the meantime, I'm sure Microsoft will be expanding and enhancing this idea. Moving on, another update would be the UI for model-driven apps. Now, I know this is something Gina was a bit excited about because it involves Microsoft Fluent, but in a nutshell, you are able to have new layouts, themes, and colors for model-driven apps, which is great in my opinion. I'll be touching on this a little bit more when I show the screenshot, but in my opinion, model-driven apps were always a bit clunky and they seemed a little bit like they came from the 90s. So having this option for new layouts and themes and colors is very exciting moving forward when creating those apps. And this will be generally available October 2023. So it is here, it is coming very soon. And the last major update for Power Apps would be Copilot for app makers and users. So Copilot is a huge thing right now. I've seen it right now being dubbed the era of AI, and that is definitely true in relation to how AI is making its way into the Power Platform and Business Central. But with Copilot related to Power Apps, this is coming in public preview of October 2023, and basically what it's going to do is allow makers to use Copilot to build and edit apps using natural language, and also write Power FX formulas with Copilot. Kind of taking a quick step back, I wanted to kind of show what each of these looked like. So not all of these updates will have screenshots or pictures to kind of showcase what they will look like, but some of them do, especially related to Power Apps. So here is the first update related to Power Apps with the App Designer UI and UX enhancements, allowing you to kind of flip-flop between the mobile and tablet view using different templates to show how they would look. All right, and here is the UI for the model-driven apps using the new layouts, themes, and colors integrated with Microsoft Fluent. So you can actually opt in to trying this by selecting the Try It Now look option. And once this is enabled, your model-driven apps will use the latest Microsoft Fluent design-based elements as they are released. If you are not a fan, users can switch back at any time. Also, a quick note on Microsoft Fluent. It is an open source cross-platform design system, and it's used to create engaging product experiences that include key components of accessibility, internationalization, and performance. It is kind of spread out across the 365 ecosystem already, so having it work its way into the Power Platform is not a surprise. All right, and lastly, I didn't have a screenshot for this one, but with Copilot within Power Apps, I wanted to provide some examples. So I said in Power App Studio, makers can use Copilot to build and edit apps using natural language, and they can also write PowerFX formulas with Copilot. PowerFX is how you give functionality to your Power App. So being able to say, add a button to my header, or change the container to be center aligned, or make this label bold in natural language versus actually creating the code yourself is going to be huge. And it is going to expedite the process of application development in the future. All right, moving on to Power BI. So as I said, Power BI is kind of my bread and butter. I love it. I love reporting. So these updates are super exciting for me. Starting off, we have 3 areas of improvement, starting with Power BI service, sharing, and then DAX. So starting off strong with Power BI service, Microsoft has released or will be releasing an update. These 2 related to Power BI service will be in public preview starting in March 2024. So we have a little bit of a ways, but it's going to happen in the blink of an eye. They have planned to create a new homepage experience that is coming to Power BI desktop that is going to resemble the 365 suite. And along with this, they are also going to make all connectors that are available in Power BI desktop in service to create semantic models. This is a huge update because previously creating semantic models was only possible in Power BI desktop. I think having this bridge between service and desktop is going to be huge. We're already kind of starting to see it. But with this new homepage, users will be able to kind of discover reports and see what is in service and pull them down and open them directly within Power BI desktop. Creating this bridge is going to be really great moving forward because Power BI is partially moving to the cloud, moving to service, and this is just the beginning of that. The next update related to Power BI are a few related to sharing. The first one I'm pretty excited about. You are now able to copy, well, you will be able to copy and paste Power BI visuals into 365 documents such as Word or PowerPoint using Microsoft Loop, and the dynamic interactivity of your visuals will still be intact. So you can copy and paste a visual into a Word document or a PowerPoint, click on it, you'll still be able to slice and dice your data. This will be in public preview starting March 2024. All right, and then the next sharing update related to Power BI is users can now save, share, and view files using OneDrive and SharePoint by default. With this update, users can share files natively within the organization without explicitly publishing files to the Power BI service. This will be really helpful in scenarios where you would like to co-locate your files and keep your documents close to your team. I'm really excited to see how this shakes out and how it kind of evolves the sharing capabilities of Power BI reports. And then the last update related to Power BI would be DAX queries with query view. This is a huge update. I will probably actually write a whole blog about this because it's giant. But now Power BI developers can write and run DAX queries natively within Power BI using a new DAX query view. Previously, as DAX queries is an existing feature, a Power BI developer would have needed to use an external tool or use an API to write and run DAX queries. But now they can write and run queries natively within Power BI in context with additional tools to quickly get started and productively use DAX. This tool will be much like a SQL query, where you can specify columns and aggregations to return a result table, making the report building process a little bit faster and maybe a little bit more intuitive for those that have a SQL background versus a Power Query background. And this will be in public preview March 2024. All right, and lastly, rounding off with Power Pages. Power Pages had a few updates related to administration, Design Studio and collaboration, and also Copilot. Starting with administration, the first update will be enabling managed environments related to Power Pages. Managed environments provides a packaged offering of advanced governance and security offerings to efficiently run sensitive workloads. Additionally, onboarding Power Pages will provide a governance experience consistent with the other parts of the Power Platform products like Power Apps and Power Automate now. Also, with other Power Pages administrative updates would be new views. So within Power Pages, you will have new security views, and this will provide admins the necessary information to audit and monitor their websites created in their tenant from a security angle. This will also provide them with usage metrics for tracking product adoption and website usage needed for planning capacity and tracking maker engagement. These new security views will also be filtered at a tenant, environment, and website level, and this is coming to be generally available in October 2023. All right, and the last few updates resolve around UX, UI, and Copilot AI. So the Design Studio and collaboration piece, comments are now going to be enabled as a collaboration method within Power Pages. Commenting is something that has kind of been expanded and utilized throughout the Power Platform currently. So it is as it says, you are now able to comment and collaborate with others as you build a website. This will reduce the need for long email chains, Teams messages, basically just having communication all over the board. And then lastly, Copilot. So Copilot will have a few updates related to Power Pages. The first one being you can actually now use Copilot, or you will be able to use Copilot to create a website and also to address builder challenges using Q&A. So Builder Q&A is a great tool. Basically, if you are a website builder or developer, you can now use Builder Q&A to ask questions as you get stuck or face challenges with your web development. And Copilot will kind of compile results based on your question, pulling from sources across Learn or community forums, etc. And then the last update related to Copilot and Power Pages is Copilot Actions for users. With this update, site users can directly interact with the site Copilot and ask for help to complete site actions such as filling out simple forms or finding and getting redirected to resources on the website. So all of these features are coming to the Power Platform. Like I said, these are just what I found most exciting. But now we're going to hop over to Gino, and he is going to start to review Business Central Wave 2 release.
Awesome. Thanks, Savannah. So I appreciate the huge overview of the Power Platform. It's definitely come a long way. I see that Microsoft's making a lot of strides to keep it a low code, no code platform for people like me who want to dabble in creating a product that is not a developer. I'm not even going to call myself a developer. So I think Copilot is a huge step in that direction, to be honest with you. Now we're going to jump into the Business Central Wave 2 releases. You can go ahead and pop to the next slide there, Savannah. So as you can see, Microsoft has made a lot of investment areas in this 2023 Wave 2 release. Some of these items are items that have kind of been in preview for some time, for maybe the last couple of releases. Some of these items may be carried over from the last release, but there's also a lot of new stuff that's in here too, and stuff that they're building upon a previous release, which I'll get into in some of the application areas that I'm going to talk about. But there's a large number of features being added to the application to development, User experience is another huge one. And then, of course, a number of features relating to the Power Platform, Microsoft 365, and Copilot. That whole thought process of Microsoft just making everything work well together. Why don't you go to the next slide? But we don't have the time to talk about all of these today. There are a large number of features. Oh, and not to mention that they're also, after this release, Microsoft will be supporting over 150 plus countries and localizations in Business Central as well. So that's huge. It's pushed out to a large and broader range of markets that it's never reached before. So but today I'm going to focus on, just 4 of those. We're going to look at some of the application area improvements. I have 4 items that I'm going to highlight from there. Look at the user experience improvements. I have sort of a roundup there that I want to go through of the highlights that I find are extremely interesting and that your users can take advantage of once you're upgraded. Governance and administration, Microsoft is making more and more changes around security. And how you administer your environment, giving more power to the administrator and allowing you to do more things yourself, and then also focusing more on granular security. And you'll hear a little bit about that. And then Savannah and I are going to round it off with the Power Platform, Microsoft 365, and Copilot. So you want to hop to the next slide? Oh no, my slide didn't save. Okay. Okay, well, there's supposed to be 4, so I will talk through the one that's missing, but there are 4 application areas that I want to talk about today, or 4 application features that I want to talk about today that are part of this release. The first one is how to handle different warehouse operations. Microsoft has made some changes on separating internal movements from inbound and outbound movements in a warehouse, which I think is a pretty useful feature. They're adding more and more features to basic warehouse configurations that were originally meant for just advanced warehousing, so giving more powers to users that may not need full advanced warehousing capabilities. And then analyzing, grouping, and pivoting data on queries using multiple tabs. That is another one that I want to go ahead and go through. And then the last one I want to touch on, this one I did add last minute, but I thought it was an important one to bring up. The title of this one in the release notes is called Suggest the Next Step for Sales and Production Orders. But if you dig into the release notes really well, Microsoft is making some significant enhancements to reservation management in Business Central. Now that I found interesting because you get mixed reviews if you talk to a consultant about using reservations in Business Central or not. So I believe that some of these enhancements, it's not like I don't think they're changing the core functionality of reservations. They're just making it easier to manage. And I think that was the big issue with reservations in Business Central thus far, is that you reserve an item and it goes through the whole process of, from sales to production to shipment, and it's hard to backtrack from there. So I think it was just hard to manage. That's why a lot of times consultants would advise to not use reservations in Business Central. But we'll take a look at we'll take a look at this feature, and I'll discuss it a little bit. Go ahead and go to the next slide there, Savannah. So configure how to handle different warehouse operations. So in Business Central, in the current version, 2023 Wave 1 or version 22 of Business Central, currently all of your internal movements and all of your inbound and outbound movements are all controlled over a single set of Booleans. So whether you want to require receive, put away, pick, bin mandatory, all of those are, it's come one, come all. You know what I mean? You turn it on, it's turned on for internal movements as well as your inbound and outbound transactions. In 2023 Wave 2, Microsoft is making some changes on separating your internal movements from your inbound and outbound movements. So as you can see to the screenshot to the right here, in 2023 Wave 2, Microsoft has separated your production, assembly, and job movements from the purchase, sales, service, and transfer movements. And now you can set your level of warehouse handling for those movements based on consumption output, assembly consumption, and job consumption. And you can put how much level of warehousing movement requirements on those particular transactions of Business Central. And this is actually a pretty useful functionality because there's some areas of the business where you need to be more granular. There's some that you don't need to be more granular. There's some you want more detailed movement requirements on inbound and outbound, but you don't need them on internal movements. So Microsoft has sort of taken a step to separate those so you can make the determination for yourself. Go ahead and up to the next one. Thanks, Savannah. Use advanced pick and put away features in Basic Warehouse. In a previous release, Microsoft did enable some advanced warehousing functionality in Basic Warehousing. So they enabled the ability for you to be able to use things like bins, your movement worksheets, calculating bin replenishment, bin capacities, warehouse class checks, special equipment, and warehouse documents. That's all stuff that was at first required when you had to enable directed pick and directed put away in order to use that functionality. In the last release, Microsoft allowed you to turn those things on without having to enable the directed pick and directed put away in Business Central. They're kind of adding on to that now. So in 2023 Wave 2, they're adding bin policies to the mix, which will allow you to assign your bin ranking as well as put away policies to bin. So they're just deepening that ability, those abilities that you can do in Basic Warehousing without having the need to turn on directed pick and directed put away. Go on to the next one, Savannah. Analyze, group, and pivot data and queries using multiple tabs. As you can see, I have a little video here of me creating a query in what's called Analysis View in Business Central. Now, this has been in preview for the last release, but what Microsoft is giving you the ability to do is sort of group items and list pages by specific attributes. It's almost like creating a pivot table in Business Central. And better yet, what they're allowing you to do is create different analysis views as tabs. As you can see along the top of the screen there, I'm creating two different analysis views, items by vendor and items by type. So basically what I did is I've been able to group my item list page by the vendors and by the type of product, by the type of inventory item it is. So you can do a lot more advanced things with this functionality, but I just wanted to be able to show you the basics. And you can do things by adding calculations. You can extend this by creating custom queries from development. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do with Analysis View without having to pull your data out into Excel and make the queries that way. Another thing is another future thing that's going to be coming out is the ability to share those queries as well. Go on to the next one now, Savannah. So that's it. So the last item that I wanted to talk about when it came to application was a feature called, sorry, I had to bring up my notes here just so I can talk about it since I don't have a slide. Suggest next steps for sales and production orders. And the way Microsoft is gearing this is scenarios where a salesperson or a production planner can check the status of a demand or make a decision on how to move to the next step in the order process. So such as creating the production order or posting consumption or creating the warehouse document for the shipment. But being able to see an order through its life cycle when you're using reservations in Business Central. And the way they did that is they did a couple of things. Now, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail because I can talk an hour just on this subject alone. But Microsoft has created two things that I thought were fairly interesting. One is they created a functionality for you to be able to mass reserve and mass unreserve inventory. Okay, and they're doing this by creating what's called a reservation worksheet. So you can actually bring up a reservation worksheet in Business Central. Run a command that will pull in reservations based on criteria that you set in a filter page, and then be able to reserve or unreserve inventory. But also, you have the ability to open up your documents, such as a production order or a sales order, to see what inventory is actually available for you to be able to allocate to that order, or if you have enough inventory to be able to allocate to that order. And it takes in current reservations into account with that too. So I suggest you dig a little deep into this feature, because I do think that Microsoft is making it easier to utilize reservations in Business Central. Like I said, it's one where 50-50. There's some consultants that don't like using reservations. There's some that are perfectly fine with it. In my opinion, they are always just hard to manage, and it is always very hard to unwind reservation transactions if you run into an issue. But I think Microsoft is taking steps to change that now. So that's why I just wanted to make sure I mentioned this one. Next item that I want to talk about is our user experience roundup. So the items that I want to talk about for user experience are getting to data from anywhere in Business Central, customizing the field editability directly from the UI, Business Central mobile app improvements. Highlight, this is out of the entire release, this one's my favorite one, because I like when things that you thought were dead come back to life. There's not been many updates and improvements to the Business Central mobile app in at least the last 3 or 4 releases, but someone can call me out if they think I'm wrong on that. But there has not been many changes to the Business Central mobile app. This is the first one where they're actually bringing some, in my opinion, some significant changes to the mobile app that I think would make it more user-friendly and provide more usability to it. Showing related details from a lookup, and then enhancements to the edit in Excel functionality, which I'm actually going to dig into a little later in my slides. But Savannah, so the first one, get to data from anywhere in Business Central. 1 or 2 releases ago, Microsoft released a functionality called search in company data, which basically allows you to put a string into a search box and then search across whatever tables you selected in Business Central. In this case, I put a Datum Corporation, and it's in the search company data. Microsoft is as give me results and contacts, customers, ledger entries, posted invoices. Then you can go directly to those transactions right from this screen. Well, now Microsoft is starting to integrate that functionality into the Tell Me functionality, which is, in my opinion, the easiest way to navigate Business Central is by searching for what you're looking for. So now in 2023 Wave 2, you can type in something like a Datum Corporation. It's obviously not going to return a report or a page or a worksheet. It's going to suggest that you search from company data. And when you select that option, it will automatically it'll bring up the searching company data preview functionality and insert a Datum Corporation into the search box and then return your results. Okay. Now, you may get a lot of results that you don't need. So going into the weeds a little bit here, what you can do is you can determine what tables and what fields you want to search from by selecting the Show in Tables to search from the action ribbon on the Search and Company Data page. You can select your tables, and then you can drill into those tables and select your fields that you want to search from. So you can sort of get to your results that way. But I thought this one was a notable mention because it's still in preview, but Microsoft, I mean, it seems like it's coming close to being out of preview because they're starting to integrate it into the Tell Me. Customize the field editability from the UI. So from personalize and design in this release, you can now determine which fields are editable and which fields are not. You can actually lock editing directly from the personalization and design feature in Business Central. As you can see from my little video here, you see that I'm going into personalize, and then I am changing the number field to lock editing. Okay, so if you don't want to accidentally change a field from a personalization perspective, I can go in and lock a field to make sure I don't accidentally change the edit number. Okay, but you can also go into design mode within the Business Central UI and lock it for a particular role if you're customizing a particular role in Business Central. So you no longer need development resources to be able to determine whether a field is editable or not. You can do it directly from the UI. And then my favorite one, this is the one I'm excited about, is the Business Central mobile app improvements. There are 3 major changes that they're making to the Business Central mobile app that I think are really exciting. The first one is the ability to scan barcodes in Business Central's mobile app for both iOS and Android. So Microsoft is opening up the ability for be able to use your camera to scan a barcode in Business Central. They are even opening it up to where if you have an Android OS installed on a Datalogix or a Honeywell scanner, be able to scan barcodes from an actual, pistol grip scanner, which is really cool. It's not a functionality that you were able to do before in Business Central. It opens it up for more and more people to be able to use the app and use it for things for like looking up items, or if you want to be able to use it at a trade show to be able to scan trade show barcodes and create contacts in Business Central or leads in Business Central. There's a bunch of different opportunities from a supply chain and a sales perspective that you can be able to use barcodes for. And it's opening up for developers too. Developers can customize in a couple of different ways, how barcodes are read by the scanner in the mobile app as well. So there are some notes in the release notes on how developers can use barcodes in the mobile app as well. But that one's one of my favorite features of this entire release wave. The second one is searching for pages and data in the mobile app. Yes, they're bringing the Tell Me functionality to the Business Central mobile app. So you can, as you can see from my second screenshot there, you can search for sales orders and you can bring up either the sales order list. It's just similar to this Tell Me functionality that is in Business Central mobile or desktop application today. It is now coming to mobile. And then the last one, I don't have a screenshot for this one because it's not fully released yet, is accessing worksheet pages from the mobile phone. So your planning worksheet, a journal worksheet, you can access worksheets from the Business Central mobile app now when you could not do that before. That is a functionality that is going to be released in one of the cumulative updates. It won't be out on October 1st, but it is coming shortly. Showing related details from lookup. This is a minor enhancement, but useful. You have the ability to bring up the details of a particular lookup item that's selected. As you can see from my screenshot here, it is now only 2 clicks to get to the item card when you're trying to get to more details on an item from a sales order line. Before, you used to have to navigate through the action item menu or select for full list and then view the item card that way. So before it was like 3 or 4 clicks to be able to get through, to get to the Business Central or to the item card or a detailed information on a particular item from a drop-down, from a lookup menu. So that's just a minor enhancement, but saves a lot of clicks. So I think that's a notable mention in my opinion. Okay, going on to governance and administration. So in governance and administration, there are 4 areas that I want to talk about. I don't have a screenshot for these, but I'm going to talk through them really quickly. I know I'm kind of running out of time here, so I'll talk through them pretty fast. But the first one is granular administration as a Dynamics 365 Business Central administrator. So Microsoft, they added currently to access Dynamics 365, a Microsoft 365 user needs to be assigned a Dynamics 365 administrator role, okay? Microsoft, and what that does is it gives you access, it gives a user in Microsoft 365 access to the entire Dynamics 365 set of products that you may own. So if you give somebody a Dynamics 365 administrator role in Microsoft 365, they can have access to Dynamics 365 for sales. They can have access to the Power Platform. They can have access to Business Central, depending on how many Dynamics products you are actually using. Microsoft is now breaking that out to be a little bit more granular. So if you have somebody who literally just needs access to Business Central as an administrator, you can assign them a Dynamics 365 Business Central administrator role. That way, if you have Dynamics 365 for sales, they wouldn't get access to that then. So they're just, it's going back down to the zero trust security policy that Microsoft is implementing. They're making everything as granular as possible so you can have, your administrators can have the most control over the security in your environment. Transfer environments between Microsoft Entra tenants. So Microsoft Entra is Microsoft's rebranding to Azure Active Directory. So it used to be called Azure Active Directory, but now it's called Microsoft Entra. And Microsoft Entra tenants, you now have the ability, like if you purchase another company that's using Business Central, or you have multiple entities in multiple Business Central or multiple Entra tenants or Azure Active Directory tenants, you can consolidate them using a tool within the Business Central Admin Center. This is something that was in the last release wave, but it was pushed to this one. You used to have to open a Microsoft support ticket to transition environments over from one tenant to another. Now you can do this transition yourself. Control partner access per environment. Once again, going back down to the granular controls, about a year ago, Microsoft released what was called GDAP, which is basically granular permissions to a customer's Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Entra environment. So when a partner requests access, they need to request access only to what they need, not full access or global admin rights to a customer's tenant. This is getting a little bit more granular now. Now partners will have to request access to specific Business Central environments, or no, they don't have to request it, but customers can give access to specific Business Central environments. So if customers don't want partners to have access to their production environment, customers can limit that now. So that's something just to point out, is that there's going to be more granular access to Business Central in the cloud for partners if a customer elects to do so. And then cloud migration improvements. There's a couple of improvements that Microsoft has made to the cloud migration suite. One is the ability to include or exclude tables from a cloud migration from on-prem to SaaS. And then the second one is the ability to cancel an in-process cancel an in-process cloud migration. Before, you had to wait until it failed, or you had to wait till you get an error, or wait till it completed before you can start your process again, which can sometimes be hours. Now you have you have the ability to cancel it, wait for Microsoft to confirm that it's been canceled, and then fix what you need to fix, and then restart the cloud migration again. Alrighty.
All right, thanks, Gino. That was great. Definitely a lot of updates across BC and the Power Platform. Now we're just going to briefly touch on how they are being utilized better together. We probably won't be able to touch on everything on this slide, but perhaps it could be in a follow-up blog post. Some of these we've already kind of talked about a little bit. And, this will kind of be more of a discussion between Gino and I and how we think this will shake out. But ultimately, I can kind of see the Power Platform and Business Central becoming a melting pot. Features are going to start becoming available integrated within each other, ultimately to enhance each of these products to work better together, if you will. So we've kind of talked a little bit about Copilot in the Power Platform. The main point here is that Copilot is being integrated across the Power Platform, and every integration is to improve usability, accessibility, and performance. And we're already seeing that with things like Power Apps and Power Pages in terms of ease of use of creation to continue to provide and create intuitive solutions. We've also kind of seen Copilot being integrated across to Business Central. Gino, if you want to touch on those a little bit. I know we have some exciting features like Create with Copilot that really will make certain processes faster.
Yeah, so couple things. So one is more of like a experience type thing. The second one is more of, something just cool for small businesses that aren't very large and have a lot of people that do cross department, roles. So the first one is a Create with Copilot in Business Central. A lot of people may have seen this in preview already, where you have an item set up with attributes and a description on the item card and just various attributes on the item card. There is going to be a new fact box that's included in the Business Central on the item card. And what it gives you the ability to do is generate marketing text for your website or something like that. So what Copilot will do is it'll suck in the information from the item card and then spit out a marketing description for a particular item. And then you just tweak the changes that you want to make. And then, voila, you have marketing text for, a website. Which I think is pretty cool, especially for companies that may not have a dedicated marketing department. It certainly helps with writing those type of descriptions, especially if you're using things like attributes in Business Central. It certainly takes those into account when you're generating your marketing text. The second one is bank reconciliation enhancements in Business Central. Now, there's two main things that AI is going to take part in here. The first one is AI-powered transaction matching. So basically what it's going to do is it's going to improve the automation and reduce the time remaining to identify unmatched transactions in a bank reconciliation that may require you to dig a little deeper into them. So I don't have much details around that one, but that's what Microsoft is saying the AI-powered transaction matching is going to do. And then on top of that, for those transactions you may need to look into, AI is going to generate also an explanation of the reason why that transaction may not be matched, which I think is pretty cool as well. So it'll sort of help you, where to look. And obviously, AI, part of it is also a learning model as well. So as you're using the system, those type of things get better and better and better.
All right, Gino, I think we have time for maybe one more point before we wrap up. I know we have some hard stops today, but
Yeah.
I wanted to briefly touch on Power Automate and BC, specifically related to approval workflows and kind of improvements there as far as how the approval workflow process is being enhanced.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. So Microsoft did introduce Power Automate workflows a couple of versions ago, and they were a good start, but it took a lot of setup on the back end in order to get them to work. A lot of manual setup. So things like choosing environments and companies and assigning the approver all through the workflow. Microsoft is making enhancements to that with built-in templates within the Business Central UI to be able to automatically fill in the things that are, like in your mind are like, it should have known this already. You know what I mean? So things like knowing the environment you're building the approval for, knowing the company that you're building the approval for, using fields within Business Central for the approvers. So those are all things, and then making like the notifications a lot more cleaner when somebody is requesting approval on something. So who's requesting the approval is one thing that, Microsoft is adding. And then the last thing is sending the approvals as a card in Microsoft Teams. So when you get an approval rejected or approved, you can get a ping in Teams saying, Savannah approved your time off request, or Savannah approved this purchase order. So those are the key things there.
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, that is a wrap. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Gino, for speaking with me and collaborating. This recording will be posted on YouTube. Also, there will be a follow-up summarization blog post, if you will. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and we will get those addressed within that blog.
Thank you, everybody. It was nice to be able to speak on this one. Have an awesome day.
Thank you, guys.